give thanks unto the Lord, for he is good. Welcome to the Spice of Life variety show, where you indeed are a very special person. We bring you greetings from the West Angeles Church of God in Christ, where Bishop Charles E. Blake and Mrs. May L. Blake are our leaders. We encourage you to grab a pen and paper and copy down our contact information, which will run after at the conclusion of the show. We know that you will want to contact our special guests for additional information, because a child does need you. And so again, welcome to the Spice of Life variety show, and may God bless your household in Jesus' name. Well, if you've seen the show and you are a regular viewer of the show, then you know I don't sit alone. I have my very dear co-host here, my dear friend, sister in the Lord, Evangelist Pamela Diane Webb. How are you doing, Pamela Diane Webb?
Dr. Tonya D. Lewis. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Well, you kind of really told our viewing audience what we're going to speak about.
I know.
A child needs you, but a child needs us. And we're going to have some vital information for our guests.
Yes.
Very informative
You know,
information.
So often, sometimes people think that they should only be concerned about their children, but their biological children.
Right.
But that's not the case.
No.
Because it does take a village to raise a child.
children.
And a child does need you. And so we have a very wonderful, spectacular guest
Yes.
to sort of inform us and enlighten us on this subject in the person of Cynthia Marie Willard. She's a licensed social worker. She's also has a master's and the assistant director of the Institute for Black Parenting. So welcome, Cynthia Willard. Glad to have you on the show. So how are you today?
I'm doing great.
You doing great?
right.
Doing great.
All right then. Now, you are the assistant executive director of the Institute for Black Parenting. What exactly is the Institute? That's a mouthful.
Yeah, right there.
What exactly is the Institute for Black Parenting?
Okay, let me start off with giving you a little history
Okay.
about the organization.
Okay.
The Institute for Black Parenting was originally founded in 1976. So that makes us about 30 years old. That we've been providing quality services in the African American community. We started out under the Association of Black Social Workers, providing child abuse treatment and prevention services. At that time, I was a student at Cal State LA, getting my bachelor's degree in social work. And my teacher, who was the original founder of the Institute, came to me, and she asked me if I wanted to do my field placement or my internship at the Institute for Black Parenting. So I said, oh, well, that would be ideal. Sound great.
Wow.
So I spent the next year getting my internship completed at the Institute. And then I went on to USC to get my master's degree in social work.
Okay.
I worked at Los Angeles County Department of Children and Family Services for about 10 years.
Oh, okay.
And during that time, while I was getting my paid employment through the county, I was doing volunteer work through the Institute for Black Parenting. And we provided counseling, parenting classes, and resources for African American children and families. Those families were referred to us by the courts. And there were very few services in the African American community 30 years ago. So that's how we got started. And then as we progressed, I worked for Los Angeles County Department of Adoptions, and we saw that a lot of children were coming into the child welfare system, and a lot of families were coming forward to adopt those children, but the placements just weren't happening. The state of California had given some grants to community-based organizations, and I was working as a liaison with those organizations. And we had recruited over 1,000 families.
Wow.
They were African American,
That's amazing.
Latino,
That's amazing.
and Native American families.
Okay.
And of those 1,000 families that we recruited, only 10 of them actually got through the process.
10?
10. That's
Something's wrong with
Yeah,
that.
what's wrong with that picture?
Yeah.
okay. So that's what the state said. Well, you know, we've spent over $8 million in recruitment. What is the problem?
Wow.
So our executive director and co-founder, Zena Oglesby, went to the state and he said, if you give us a black adoption agency, give us the funding to start a black adoption agency, we'll show you that we can retain the families.
Oh,
Recruiting them was not the problem.
Right.
Whenever we go on television or on the radio
Right.
or at a community-based event, we would get hundreds of families or even thousands of families, but it was actually helping to navigate them through the system. So the state gave us a small grant
Okay.
for 27 months.
Okay.
And we started out at 71st and Western, which is the Black Social Workers Office. I'm sure you've
Yes,
driven by and seen it.
Right.
And that's how we started with the licensed portion. The original was volunteer services, and then we became licensed by the state of California. We realized then that adoption was at the end of the continuum, that we really needed to focus on foster care where the children were coming into the child welfare system. So we became licensed as a foster family agency,
Okay.
and that was in 1989.
Okay.
Oh,
We were also looking at providing full service, which means that we would serve the entire family, which is the child and the adoptive family and the birth family. So we were doing relinquishments. We provide counseling and parenting classes for parents who initially come in and say they want to give up their child for adoption, but they end up keeping the child. And then we surround them with the resources to help them to keep the child
okay.
and maintain the child in the home. And for many young teenagers, they're in crisis, they need counseling, they need someone to talk to, they may need housing, they may need to get financial assistance, so we help them get on TANF. That's temporary assistance for needy families. We also help them to get the Medi-Cal card so they can go and get prenatal care. So with that, we've serviced over 2,000 birth parents in the 18 years that we've been licensed. And of that, only 68 have actually relinquished their children. So that means that 97% have actually kept their
Excellent,
children.
excellent.
Yeah.
Now, when you say relinquish, you mean as a result of them being foster parents or adoption?
Okay, a birth parent finds out they're pregnant,
Okay.
a young woman,
Okay.
and sometimes couples come in also, and they say, I cannot take care of this child.
Okay.
Maybe they're a teenager and they're too young, or maybe they're a couple and they already have 3 or 4 children. They can voluntarily come in and relinquish their rights. This is different. This is called a voluntary placement.
Okay.
This is different from the children that come from the Department of Children and Family Services.
Okay.
Those are involuntary placements where children are taken away from their birth parents because of child abuse, neglect,
Right.
and primarily right now the biggest problem is drugs. So those are the primary reasons why children are coming into the child welfare system. So we do service the two populations, both the voluntary and the involuntary placements.
Okay. Now, you have offices not only in Los Angeles, but where else? Within California, first of all.
Okay. We have an office in Los Angeles, which is our one of our adoption programs. It's the Adoption Promotion and Support Services Program, and we provide services for families who have adopted or who are in the adoption process. Those families are referred to us by Los Angeles County. We also have an office in Riverside, and we service San Bernardino and Riverside County from that office. We have an office in Inglewood that services Los Angeles and Orange County. So we serve 4 counties, LA, Orange, San Bernardino, and Riverside. And then we also have another office in Inglewood. That's our family preservation program. And that's housed at the Faithful Central Bible Trinity building.
Okay.
And that particular program has been around for about 10 years, where we've been doing family preservation services.
That's amazing.
Wow.
And not only, Pamela, are they in California, but they're in
Another part of
Louisiana.
the United States.
How did you end up in Louisiana? Inquiry minds want to know.
Okay, can you guess? Well, I think maybe you might know from my accent. I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana, born and raised out there, and came out here and, you know, got my education and stayed. Actually came out here just for a visit, and I just love Southern California, so I ended up staying.
That's okay.
And over the years, working with the adoption agency, we would go to different states to do trainings. We do workshops and trainings at different conferences.
Okay.
Well, we were going to Louisiana for about 6 or 7 years doing workshops and trainings, staff trainings and community conferences.
Okay.
And one of the directors of the department, it's called Office of Community Services in Baton Rouge, called one day and she said, "Cynthia, can you guys come to Louisiana and do what you're doing in California?"
Oh, okay.
And I said, well, let me think about it.
Okay. Okay.
So I talked to Zena, the executive director, and we kind of, you know, looked at, well, why not?
Why not?
You know,
That's a challenge. Yeah, that's a
Why
challenge.
not?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Another
So
door.
they gave us a very small grant, which gave us the seed money to get the office open.
Okay.
We started out in New Orleans,
Okay.
Louisiana, which is my hometown.
Okay.
I already knew people. I had a lot of resources. I had friends that were willing to, you know, come on board, be our advisory board. One of my colleagues from USC is now working in New Orleans for OCS, so you know I had
Established,
the people and the resources in place. So we went to New Orleans, Louisiana, and then we got a grant from the federal government for 4 years, and then unfortunately last year when the grant was about to run out, Katrina hit the office, and so it's been dormant for about a year.
Okay.
I just got back last week, went down there, and the board and the staff, we all got together, and we had to relocate because the office that we were in still doesn't have electricity and water.
Okay.
And the area is still totally devastated.
Okay.
So we had to move to another location. We're now in Metairie, Louisiana, which is near the airport.
Okay.
And a very nice community. So we're back on the map in New Orleans. Or
That's what I'm
Metairie.
talking about. I'm kind of interested in some stats now. Foster care versus adoption, etc. What you may find more children in which program, which gender, age group. You know, just give us some stats as to that.
Well, actually, the foster care program has the largest number of children.
Okay.
Nationwide, there are over 500,000 children
Wow,
in
that's
foster
a
care.
lot of children.
A lot of children.
Wow.
Primarily, New York and California have the largest number of children. In California, we have just about 100,000.
Wow.
In Los Angeles County, it's a little over 30-something thousand.
Los Angeles
So we
County.
have a big job when it comes to foster care. On the adoption end, there are a lot of services that are being provided, and family reunification is the primary service. So a lot of the children do end up going back to their biological, either their birth parents or to extended family.
Okay.
And there are a lot of relatives. We talked a little bit about kinship care.
Yeah.
A lot of relatives, 40 to 50% of the children in Los Angeles County are being raised by relatives, grandparents, aunts, uncles, even some siblings are raising, their brothers and
Right,
sisters.
exactly.
So the real need is in foster care, because there are so many children that are coming into the child welfare system. And then, of course, there are some parents who are not able to meet the court-mandated requirements, and those children do become available for adoption. So that is part of our continuum of services.
Now, will we find more females, more males, or what's the stats on that?
We find that there are more males that are harder to place.
More males, okay.
Yes.
All right.
The female children, we have families, we have a waiting list for girls, for baby girls.
Oh,
Baby
girls.
And baby girls, and girls in general. But when it comes to the little boys, we have to do some active recruitment.
Wow.
For some reason, the boys languish in the system. And as they get older, then the older they get, the more difficult it is to place them.
Wow. Well, that really grips my heart with being a mother of 3 sons, because I know how darling the sons can be, but by the same token, that's unfortunate. I'm so sorry about that. Now, once children come into, let's just say a child is adopted, all rights are signed away from by the birth parent. No more rights. That's no longer your child or anything of that nature.
Yeah,
That's good.
there's 2 ways again. They can either voluntarily relinquish the child, or the courts can terminate the parental rights for whatever the situation is. They've abandoned the child, there was child abuse and neglect, or there's drugs or whatever. So the courts can be involved in terminating the parental rights.
Does your agency, once they come of age, which is what, 18, if they want to find their biological family, is there a program in place, or we don't?
Yes, we provide post-placement services, which addresses any issue that comes up after the child is adopted. And we do get a lot of inquiries on searching. So we do help them in any way that we can. We may have, the meeting could be at our office, which would be like a neutral setting, or we may set something up at a restaurant or a park or something, depending on what the situation is. But we would have someone, we have social workers that would actually help facilitate that process.
What do you, and I can clearly understand why it is so great that social workers are facilitating that, because it's so many emotional emotions involved in that, with that of placement, with that of just trying to match them, and it's just unfortunate that there are so many. 500,000, that's a lot of, that's much, that's many more than a lot of towns and little cities and the like. Let me ask you this now, do you find yourself ever becoming attached to any of the children to a degree that it's difficult for you to let go? Or how many do you have? You have like 100,000 at your home? Or how many do you have at your home? And I'm just being facetious now.
Actually, when I first started, we had some ideas and some notions about adopting, and we would go. We used to have these match parties, showing parties, they call it, where Halloween and Valentine's Day, we would, give these parties. This was part of the support groups that I was the liaison to. And we would invite adoptive parents to meet some of the children that were available for adoption. And my husband kind of signed up for a couple of kids. And I thought about it. We had 3 children of our own at that time. And then I thought about it and I said, my role is not to be the adoptive parent, but to help these children. And when I look back, we, with the agency, there have been over 1,000 placements.
Okay.
And I know I couldn't have adopted 1,000 kids.
Right.
So, you know,
You're
it
in your
wasn't
right
to
role.
be the adopted parent, but to help find families for
homes.
all of these children, especially the siblings.
Okay.
What is really difficult is keeping the children together. So we really look for families who are willing to open up their homes and their hearts to not just one,
Right.
but 2 or 3 children. So
Right.
we don't have to split them up. We don't
Right.
split them up. The county split, you know, they try to keep them together.
Right, of
But if
course.
we can find a home that will take them all, that's our first goal.
In the case where you do have to split them up, is contact kept
Yes.
between the siblings?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Sometimes, depending on the situation, if it's foster parents, like in our foster care program, if we have children in different homes, we'll facilitate the transportation. We provide transportation. At our office, sometimes they come to the office and the birth parents will come. So we make sure that transportation is built in so that doesn't become a barrier.
Okay. For,
Let me just ask.
okay.
What about special need children?
Okay,
Now, how-
under the special needs program, most children fall under that category. They either are because of the race, because of their age, if they're over 3, if they're part of a sibling group, or if they have some kind of medical or psychological or emotional problem. So the majority of the children that we deal with are special needs.
Wow.
The only ones that aren't are those healthy babies that I told you about, and we only get like 1 or 2.
That's amazing.
There aren't that many
That's
babies
amazing.
out there, so I don't want to discourage anyone who's interested in babies, but that's not where the greatest need is. We need families for older children, for sibling groups, and especially teenagers. As the children get older, they still want a home that they
course,
can call
right,
their
right.
own.
Of course they do. Now, for the person that's interested in adopting, what are the qualifications? What do you need from me?
Okay. Well, the first thing I need is a loving family.
Okay.
Someone who loves kids
Okay.
and who has the time, the patience, perseverance. And of course, there are state requirements as far as paperwork. You have to fill out an application. You need medical exams. There's fingerprinting, references. There's training that we provide, and the training is very helpful because it helps you to understand the children's needs so that when you become a parent, you can understand some of the emotions that the children are going through.
Of course.
So, you know, the basic requirements are there, and there's a home study, which is an assessment. And we ask you questions. Why do you want to adopt? Why do you want to be a foster parent? And we look at the motivation,
Okay.
you know, and then all of that is put into a narrative form, and it's called the home study assessment.
How long does the
Yeah, how long
process
does it take?
Well, generally it can take from as little as 3 months to maybe a year.
Okay.
And that's because it depends on scheduling, on some people are more motivated when it comes to paperwork. You know, some
Okay.
people, they'll come to an orientation and you tell them what all the requirements are, and they come and they'll give you the packet with every form, every document in there. And then other people, you get them one piece at a time. You know,
Okay.
well,
Right.
here's my medical, well, here's my
Okay.
DMV printout, or things like that. So it really depends on the motivation of the client, the scheduling of the home visit,
Okay.
the scheduling of trainings.
Okay.
We have trainings that we provide. It's called Model Approach to Partnerships in Parenting.
Okay.
So with that, it could take a few months, and we try to support people during that process. We have while you wait meetings where they come in and they can see children that are available. So we provide support services.
During that time, and we're down to the last couple of minutes of the show, during that time, are the potential children and the parents interacting at all during that waiting period?
Once a match is done,
Okay.
and a match is usually not done until the home study is completed.
Okay.
We have to make sure that this family is going to complete the process, because we don't want to introduce a child
Of course
to a
not.
family and then let's say the
Later.
fingerprints come back with
Right.
a
A felony or something
yeah.
of that.
So we make sure that the process is completed, the home study is approved, and then we work with the county and we match the child to the family, and then there's steps. They might meet the child the first time at the foster home, where the child is familiar. You know, they're in a familiar
Right.
environment.
Exactly.
The next step would be maybe to take the child to McDonald's.
Okay.
Then the
Okay.
next step might be to spend the night or spend the day.
Okay.
Come over to the house, see where
Okay.
their new bedroom's gonna be, and you know if there's any toys or animals or whatever, and spend the day. Then the next step would be to spend the night. So it's kind of a
so
gradual,
Okay,
so that
that's
you don't
good.
just take the child from their current placement
Environment,
and then put them abruptly somewhere else.
Well, I tell you what, we've been well informed today from you, Mrs. Cynthia Willard from the Institute of Black Parenting, and certainly to you, our audience, we invite you to gravitate to a child, whether you have your own or whether you can't have your own. There are children out there for you to love and to share your life with. Don't die and be a lonely person. Share yourself, share your gifts, share your love, share your warmth with them. Contact our show by jotting down our contact information at the very end. We'll be happy to facilitate the connection between you and the Institute of Black Parenting, or check it out for yourselves. Again, we thank God for you. Thank you for tuning in. And until next time, take care of yourself. And remember, a child needs you. Take care. Thank you so much.
I had some more to say.